Audiobooks for a road trip. Up next. Hey everybody, welcome to Book Talks with Miss Thomas. I'm Miss Thomas. I'm so glad you're here. I'm sorry it's been a while. It's been a busy summer. I was at the beach and I had mentioned that I was trying to find the perfect audiobook for a road trip with my family. And let me tell you, that's hard because I have a teenage son, a son in his 20s, and a husband. And so trying to find a book that all three of us could agree on was not easy. Someone at my church said that they used audiobooks like for the whole family, books that were not stories, but helpful books like The Power of Positive Thinking or How to Win Friends and Influence People. That might be the only solution because I have to tell you, the books I'm going to discuss with you today, I liked some of them quite a bit. My husband and my son liked at least one of them. But all of us to agree, not such an easy feat. I'll start with Audible, okay? So I began a membership with Audible, and I was trying to find a book on my Audible app that we would all like, or at least a book that I could order. And I saw a new release from someone named Freida McFadden. And I thought, well, who's Freida McFadden? Do I want to invest in this? What if it's not very good? What if it's not appropriate? So I got on the free app, the Libby app, and I found Do Not Disturb by Freida McFadden. And that was, they like that actually somewhat. My husband and my older son, the teenager, he just listens to music. He wasn't very interested. He did not participate. But anyway, my husband and my older son, they kind of liked Do Not Disturb. I felt like the story was going too slowly. The narrator was just taking too long, talking really slowly. But I DNF'd it. But my husband and my son were like, oh, we should have stuck with that one. That sounded like it could have been good. It seemed like a Bates Motel retelling. So it was interesting. It was about this girl, and it starts out where she has killed her husband and she is on the run. And it turns out her husband was pretty abusive and it was self-defense, but none of that seems to matter because he's well connected and she doesn't think she's going to get a fair trial. So she's on the run. And she goes to this creepy hotel, and there's this guy running the hotel, and he's kind of creepy. And it's just very creepy sort of vibe coming from the book. And then the reason I DNF'd it is because there's this woman that is across the hall, and she is a fortune teller. And I thought, I don't know if this is going to get into the paranormal. I'm definitely opposed to that kind of thing, especially with my family, because I have he's a teenager, but still, I don't want my kids thinking that I read about that stuff. So I DNF'd that one. But I'm not sure if it was going to get into the paranormal, and it looked like it. My husband and my son thought they thought it would be a good one. So maybe I'll give Freida McFadden a try at a later date. Let me know in the comments if you've read anything by Freida McFadden and you think it's, worthwhile. The Villa of Sun and Secrets was a free one on my Audible app. And so I thought, well, we'll try that one next. We're still on the same road trip, mind you. And so that one is about a woman who has just buried her mother. Her mother has died, and she has the ashes, and she doesn't know what to do with them. She's trying to decide. When her husband, he doesn't seem like a real nice guy. She's trying to engage him in discussion, and he seems sort of distant. Well, come to find out, he's having an affair. She finds a piece of jewelry that's intended for another woman. And so she's had enough. He's had affairs before, and she's like, this is it, I'm done. So she decides to take her mother's ashes and go off to visit her aunt in France. So that's the premise is the woman goes to France to visit her aunt, and there's a lot of secrets that the aunt is keeping. The aunt and her mother were very close when they were children, and then they had a falling out, and so this girl is trying to figure out why her aunt is so aloof with her, and she's staying with the aunt and trying to forge a relationship, and also trying to figure out what to do with the ashes. when they discover that they have inherited, since the mother died, this villa. And so the aunt wants to sell it, and she's thinking maybe she'll start over. She'll start her new life at the villa in France, since she's, leaving her husband, the kids are grown, and she tries to forge a life for herself in France. And I liked that one. I thought it was enjoyable. I had to table it because we listened to a couple of hours, but my husband and my son were like, enough, this is so boring. So I guess it was a girly book, and there was a lot of the French accents. The French accents bothered my husband and my son. They didn't like having to adjust to the dialect or the accents. So I ended up tabling that. I'm gonna go back and finish it, but it's not one that I would recommend for men. Pink Lemonade Cake Murder by Joanne Fluke is, Joanne Fluke's been around a while, and she's got those movies on the Hallmark Channel, and I love them. I watched all of the Hannah Swenson mysteries on the Hallmark Channel, and so you can't really go wrong with Joanne Fluke. It's a clean mystery. There's nothing objectionable in it. The language was fine, and it was just a light, cozy mystery. Hannah Swenson runs a bakery, and so there's a lot of recipes in this Audible book, and that kind of annoyed me because for an Audible book, when you're driving, there was an awful lot of, just going over recipes. That's the only complaint I have about that one, but it was a nice, clean, cozy mystery about Hannah Swenson, typical Joanne Fluke cozy mystery. Swamp Story, I DNF'd in about 20 seconds. I don't know. That one I had on hold for a long time. It was a hard one to get. I guess a lot of people enjoyed that book, but my whole family was like, no! So I ended up DNFing that one pretty early on. It was a description of a swamp. This woman's holding her baby, and she calls for her husband because she sees, an alligator or a snake or something. And the husband comes out, and he's filthy. He hasn't showered in days. He smells like pot, and she's talking about how she loves him so. And I was just thinking, nope, no. I don't go for that kind of thing. So I'm sorry, I'm old-fashioned. I think people should not sit around smoking dope. So anyway, and I definitely don't want my kids to think that that's like something I find entertaining. So I DNF'd that one pretty early. Iscariot was the next one. Now, Iscariot by Tosca Lee, that was a winner. That was one that we all could agree on, that we all found very interesting. I have to say, I have really mixed feelings about Iscariot. I don't know if I'm going to do a separate review of it. I haven't finished it because we arrived at home listening to Iscariot. That's the one we landed on. It's the story of Judas. So it's telling the story, the biblical story, Jesus, but it starts with Judas when he's, I think, 6 years old. And the Roman Empire is just very cruel and brutal. And the book is graphic. There's definitely trigger warnings. The Roman Empire does, very violent, wages war, very violent attacks described. There's one passage where a body is being picked over by a bird, and my son said, Mom, that was a little too much. That was kind of gross for me. But I like the premise, the idea of telling the Bible story from Judas's point of view. I've always wondered about Judas. It really bothered me that Judas could be someone who was, so close to Jesus and then turned around and betrayed him. And I would often say, he killed himself. So, did he repent? And, a friend of mine said no, because he didn't trust in God. He took matters into his own hands by killing himself. So I don't know. I'm not going to go there, but I definitely struggle with the concept of Judas. Is he good? Is he bad? I asked my pastor, and my pastor said he's evil. The Bible says he's evil. I don't know. But the problem I had with Iscariot was the beginning started out really well. It was really, really engaging, except there's a lot of gore and violence, but that was the reality of the Roman Empire. However, Judas befriends Jesus, and he portrayed some of the passages in the Bible in one chapter. So he put some things in the Bible in one chapter of Iscariot that point to the idea that maybe Jesus is a lunatic, and of course he's not. And so I met with my pastor, and I said, I'm really uncomfortable with that. I'm not sure how I feel about this book. And he said, no, they're definitely not within the same time frame, these passages in the Bible, and I would be very careful listening to a retelling that takes the Bible out of context. So I'm not sure. I think I'm going to finish it. My older son was really interested in it, and so I think we'll listen to it together sometime. because I own that one. I downloaded that one from Audible. And I want my son and I to be able to discuss it together because there were things in it that I thought were really interesting. And I loved the review of the Bible from a different perspective, but I didn't really feel that it was, I guess it was just taking some liberties that made me uncomfortable. And my son said to me, well, Mom, it's definitely, my older son, he said, well, Mom, it's definitely fiction, I mean, it's biblical fiction. It's not accurate, or maybe in our opinions, it's not accurate, but it does give you food for thought. It prompts some very interesting discussion. So I'm not sure. I don't know if I'll come back and talk about Iscariot later or not. I had to table it. And for me, I can read, several books at once, especially if I've got audiobooks and paper books going. So I'll get back to Iscariot later after I've had some distance because I just was having a hard time. So just to tell you, I don't know if I'll edit this part out or not, but they took Jesus when he says, you must eat of my flesh and drink of my blood. And then he says, get behind me, Satan, to Peter. And then he says, who do you say that I am? All within the same chapter, the same few minutes of the book. And so Judas is suggesting that maybe Jesus is a lunatic. And when he says, who do you say I am? Everyone's afraid because Judas is thinking, I think you're crazy. That's how I interpreted it. I don't want to offend anybody, but that bothered me. And so I spoke to my pastor about it, and I'm not sure I would recommend Iscariot or not. But if you're going to read it with the mentality that it is in fact fiction. Be very careful not to let fiction tell you, the ultimate truth with it, which is the Bible, God's truth. That's it. It's in the Bible. If someone wants to do fiction, it's a sticky wicket. I don't know. But that's my thoughts on Iscariot. I may go back to that one later. The Happiness Plan. I listened to an audiobook. That was a very girly one, typical Susan Mallery, very fluffy fiction. I associate Susan Mallery with the beach. I think it's more a lake. I don't remember exactly the location. But The Happiness Plan, I enjoyed. It's definitely not something that would appeal to men or boys, but it was the story of, I think, 3 different couples. And the one girl, I guess, is in a different book. I'm going to try to find that other book. I think it's called Sisters Forever or something. I'll put it here. But it's a sequel to that one. And it's about, in that book, the girl has this really overbearing, self-centered mother. Maybe she's supposed to be a narcissist. And so the girl has major trust issues. And she, I guess, dumped this guy in that book. So in this book, The Happiness Plan, the girl wants to get back together with the guy, and he's got another girlfriend, and they're all couples friends. So there are 3 couples that get together, and they, Life's a Yoke is the name of the restaurant. They get together and have brunch, and they're just 3 couples that are close friends with one another. And this girl is sad because she's sort of feeling a little bit distanced from the group because she broke up with the guy, but she's still included, and the women get together with her. And so that's her issue. And then the other woman, she is married. She's married to a guy with 2 children, and he thinks that she's having an affair, and he's furious. And she's not having an affair. It's a coworker that's a man that she goes out and has meals with because they work together. The husband's convinced that there's an affair there, and so they have tremendous marital problems, and she's really struggling with that. And also, she is the stepmother, and she loves his 2 kids, and so she's struggling with that too, because she doesn't want to lose out on this family. It means a lot to her, but her husband just seems very unreasonable. And then the next couple is these 2, a male and a female, and they are friends, but they're struggling with, they're very close friends. And I guess they live in the same apartment building or condo complex, and it floods. And so they have to move in together, but they're friends, and they have separate rooms and separate lives. And so that's that couple. And then the 3 couples get together. And it was just a fun book. If you're into books about, adulting, grown people who are living their lives and trying to find their way, I guess when they're in their 20s, maybe 30s. It was fun. I enjoyed that one, but I don't think it would really appeal to guys. The last one I'm going to recommend is a 5-star read. I absolutely loved this book, but I have to tell you, it is not a Christian book. It is not appropriate for younger people, but it was a mystery with some really crazy people, and I just loved it. It definitely kept me guessing, and that is called You Shouldn't Have Come Here. And I listened to that on my Libby app, and I recommend that one to anyone who's older and not easily offended, because there is profanity, there's violence, and there's a lot of heaving, but I definitely fast forwarded the heaving. And you're probably thinking, yeah, right, you listened to the heaving and lied. But no, I really did fast forward because my children were within earshot. And even though they're older, I don't want them to think I sit around and listen to that. So I would hit the fast forward button. So I can't speak to that. Please don't say, Miss Thomas recommended a book that has this in it, because I did not listen to those passages. I skipped them. So I don't know exactly how explicit that gets. But I will tell you, it was a very creepy book about this girl who goes on a vacation. Let me check my notes. Grace goes on vacation to a ranch in Wyoming, and Grace is a New Yorker, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, very fit, very, very adorable. And she goes to this ranch run by this guy named Calvin, and Calvin's a little creepy. There's something not quite right about Calvin. And also, there are other people in Wyoming that are kind of creepy too. And so there are a lot of strange, creepy people in this book, and I love that. I love a book with interesting characters, and there were definitely some interesting characters in this one. So Grace is on this ranch, and she's there on her vacation just to relax and get away. The Wi-Fi doesn't work. She finds clothing, another woman's clothing, in the dresser of her room. She hears a woman screaming at night, and everyone says, oh no, there's no other woman. You must have had a dream. There's this weird man that shows up, and he's always drunk, and he's another guest at the ranch. And one night he wanders into her bed and falls asleep, and just because he was so drunk, but you're kind of scared because you're like, why is this guy showing up in her room? Not a major thing, it's not a spoiler, but there's just so many things going on. There's this girlfriend, Calvin has this girlfriend that comes around, and there's something not right with her. There's this woman that owns a store, and she's a little creepy. And Grace is just starting to really wonder about the people in Wyoming. And I got to tell you, the ending of that book just shocked me. I'm still thinking about that one. It's been like a week, and I'm still chewing on that storyline. It was I definitely recommend that. And that is the audiobooks that I have listened to. I know it's been a while since I've posted, but hopefully you'll forgive me, because I have lots of different books to tell you about in this video. So thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.